Take the cash, but we need the wallets.
We want it all. Hurry.
Oh, come on. Let us keep the driver's licenses and the snapshots.
And our badges.
Shit, cops.
Right, what do you think? We all wear uniforms. We all drive around in cars that say police on them.
Pointing a gun at a police officer? Can we waste them for that?
I think so.
Yeah. Yo, man. This is Wild Kingdom.
We're trying to create a stress-free environment.
Well, you have.
What is going on, everybody? Hello, what's up? This is the Black and Blue Lives podcast. I am your host, Prince Blue, and as always, it's my homie, my partner in crime, Jay Step with me right here. And I know it's been a long time since we've done a podcast, but you know, just like when we started this podcast, we told everybody that when there's something that really needs to be talked about, you know, we'll fire up the emergency pod and we'll just make it happen. And I mean, unless you've been living underneath a rock, you know, we're going to talk about the Tyre Nichols situation, which occurred between him and 5 Memphis police officers, which resulted in his death. We're going to get into that, and we're going to, as always, we're going to break it down, and we're going to be unabashed. We're going to be unapologetic, and we're going to ruffle feathers, and we're going to just make it be known, you know, how we feel on that situation. First of all, I just want to say that thank you for everybody for joining us and coming in. I know it's short notice, and as always, I'm terrible with promotions and stuff like that. My homie AJ and Ink got on me about it, and they told me that I need to do more better and get stuff together. So, but thank y'all for joining us, and please feel free to, if you have any comments, please make them on Facebook and YouTube. That's the way we'll get them. So thank you to everybody who's joining in from YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So, Step, what's going on, brother?
Man, just doing my thing, brother. Living the dream. Rocking chair and cigars. Being retired.
Yeah, I see you in the van. What's going on?
Not much, man. Just here remotely on the on an island, on an unknown island. But I didn't want to miss this, so. Yeah,
I appreciate you coming in because you reached out to me and you was like, you know, we got to talk about this thing, and I was down with it because, you know, I'm always down with critiquing our own and making sure that everybody knows how we stand on certain things. And without further ado, let's get into it. For those who just joined us and those who new to it, I am a retired police officer. I did my time with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg police officer, and this gentleman right here is a retired sergeant with the same police department. And as always, when we started this podcast, we just wanted a way to bridge the gap between police and the community. And we wanted, if anybody had questions or concerns or anything, just to get it from the perspective of me, you know, being a police officer who also happens to be breaking news black, and Step over there who breaking news who also happens to be white. So we can get it from all angles, and we can let people understand our point of view far as from policing, and then from your point of view as the community, you can ask us questions. So let's just get into it. Step, Tyre Nichols, young man who was killed by 5 police officers in Memphis during a traffic stop that resulted in his death. And a lot of things, you know, the video was just released a couple days ago, and everybody who wanted to see, I can understand if people didn't want to look at the video or not, but you and I have seen that video, we've critiqued it, and we're just going to give our viewpoints on it, where they went wrong and how we can get better, how we can make sure that shit like this doesn't happen again. So let's just start with this brother, Tyre Nichols, young man. You saw the footage, yanked out of the police car. It was on the reference of a suspicious or reckless driving call. And he ended up getting pulled out of his vehicle, tased, pepper sprayed, batoned, held up, beaten by 5 police officers, man. So you seen the video. Let's talk about it. What was the first thing you noticed that caught your eye in that video?
Well, from the very beginning, and a lot of people don't know if you're not familiar with how the BWC works. Once you activate your BWC, and they got a newer version out. I retired last February, so I'm a little behind the times. But once you activate it, it's a 30-second lapse before the audio starts. So a lot of people get confused when they see a video and they don't hear audio right away. It's not the cops trying to cover it up. It's just the video is always recording, but once you hit activate it, it starts recording, but it goes back 30 seconds to catch something prior to that. So first thing I noticed right off the bat was the intensity of the officers. Apparently they were dealing with a careless and reckless driver. So I guess they saw him driving recklessly. And depending on the totality of everything, how they approach it, if they have the guns drawn or whatever, just depending on the circumstances. But I'm the first one to admit when shit hits the fan, I'm throwing out, show me your fucking hands, don't move. So that's going to happen. But some of the language was just like, it was more than they were calling him a bitch, and just some of the stuff, and the lack of physical control over. At that time, he was a suspect of careless or reckless. They had him on the ground. They're yelling at him to give him his hands. They're not trying to take his hands. It looked like they had control of his arms a couple times. They didn't have their handcuffs out. It was just kind of strange to me. I thought the tactics were very poor, and I don't know if that's from training or what. But what about you? What drew your attention the first right off the bat when they got him out of the car?
Immediately, like you, I noticed the intensity for the type of call. It was just off. Like the bitches, the motherfuckers, and the type of language that was used for that type of call, it just bothered me. And he tried to get some clarification on what was going on. And out of 5 officers, you telling me one of them couldn't explain to him what was going on, let him know? I mean, you seen it on routine traffic stops. Hey, I'm Officer Blue. This is why I stopped you. License and registration. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just trying to figure out when a felony stop is when a suspicion of reckless driving call is issued as warrants a felony stop, warrants that type of force. I haven't been out that long.
I don't know how they articulated it or what they saw prior other than reckless driving. So to your point, careless and reckless driving alone, 99% of the time is not going to initiate a felony traffic stop. Depending where, if this guy's leaving a bank or something, I mean, there's circumstances that might elevate it a little bit. I don't know if he tried to flee, maybe I don't know the circumstances, but too, I thought for the type of call that they were reacting to, or what they saw they were reacting to, was a little over the top based on what is out there right now.
Right. And then I know that it was some things out there about he ran or he fled or something like that. But Step, you and I have been through this plenty of times. The car was there. What's inside a car? Registration, mail, something pointing to an address. So, that's one of those where you're like, all right, we can't find him. All right, we got all your information. Go to the magistrate and get a warrant and try to serve it later. You know what I'm saying? The fact that they held up this young man, like the tactics were so poor. It was 5 of them. So you telling me 5 big in shape police officers could not, and like you said, they had his hands several times during the incident, and they took turns beating on that man. They took turns hitting him, winding back, kicking him in the face, hitting him with a baton, pepper spraying him. Like I don't know about you, but we had the same use of force continuum, and it sounds like that they just totally ignored it. They didn't try to de-escalate it. Not one of them said, "Hey, that's enough." Nothing of that happened. So to me, it went far beyond tactics. It went just basic humanity and being a human being. It's like they almost made it personal, and without us knowing any type of relationship or anything they had going on, it just weird. Like, you and I, in all our years of policing, we have never seen. Pretty much, it was like a mugging. It was like a gang initiation beat up. It was nothing tactical or policing to that whole thing besides them pulling him over. That's the only. After that, the tactics and everything went out the window. Like, there was no more policing, no more training. It was just hard-nosed assault that ended in this man being murdered.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, I and I could think of 100 better ways to handle that initially, even if you don't know what the circumstances are. Hey, is this maybe a robbery? I don't know. I've been, you and I have both been in positions where you see a car speeding a high rate of speed that's not normal, and that maybe they don't stop right. You kind of have to handle it, but we would handle it a total different way. Even if we have guns out, we order them out, order them on the ground. You got two options when you do that. You got somebody that hands free and pins them against the car and they handcuff them, or you order them on the ground. They chose to order them on the ground. Their commands were horrible. Right off the bat, the training, the lack of training or discipline was horrible. And this is supposed to be the Scorpion unit. It's supposed to be a elite street crimes unit. Kind of in Charlotte, we have the crime reduction unit of FMT, but it's basically a street crimes unit, right? We do the violent crime and drug interdiction type work. And I was actually a sergeant over a unit like that for 6 years, and an officer before I got promoted for a couple of years on units like that, both in Eastway and Providence. So those units are normally dealing with high stress, violent criminals a lot. But to your point too, there's been certain times where I've been in a fight with somebody who's high or 73, which is crazy, and they just have superhuman strength, right? I don't think this doesn't appear to be one of those incidents that what is he, 140 pounds, 5'9". They didn't know it at the time, but apparently has no criminal history. Worked at FedEx with his father. Seems like a squared away dude. He's not some gangbanger or some dude out here slinging dope or trying to start fights with the police. And lack of control of his hands. And before I get back to you, Prince, it reminded me. I don't know if you talked to some real old school guys that the saying was like, "There's no need to beat a man in handcuffs. Just beat the shit out of him before you put him in handcuffs." And that's what appeared to happen. And at a large agency like Memphis, Tennessee, I mean, they're pretty large agencies with 1,500-1,600 officers, close to the size of CMPD. You would expect better training and tactics than that. And I was really disappointed in what I saw.
Yeah, and people was hung up on the whole Scorpion thing, and it came out to be an acronym for what you said. Like, in here we have the FMT and the Crime Reduction Unit, and their Scorpion unit was part of their Crime Reduction and FMT unit. And the one thing I noticed immediately off the bat that I found strange, like you just said, you was a sergeant over that for over the CRU team for 6 years. I didn't see a first line supervisor out of the 5 of them.
No.
And that bothers me, because it's like, so you telling me this unit is just out there supervising themselves? Like where was the, hey, we got his car, we don't know where he is, or whatever the case may be, and then that sergeant will give you the next step. It could have been, hey, get a warrant, hey, we're not pursuing that. It's just reckless driving, whatever. We'll get them on cameras. Like, we're not dealing with it. It was nobody to let them know before they even got to that level, hey, this isn't worth it. So I'm trying to figure out, where was the supervision? Where was the veteran in that group to be like, hey, this is not good. Like, let's leave this alone. It's so many questions. And that video and the aftermath just showed me a failure on so many levels. You had that. You had other officers standing around. You had no tactics or decorum with the cameras on. You had people laughing, joking, lying. He didn't get Tyre Nichols didn't get, the EMTs didn't help him. It was so crazy. And it's really like, you and I, we've been part of some crazy calls or things like that. You and I both have been in shootouts. You and I both have had to discharge our weapon in the line of duty. We've never been a part of anything like that or seen anything like that. And like I was trying to tell people, normally when you got that many officers and you're trying to get control of a suspect, once you get control, one of the officers say, hey, we got him. Hey, we got him. We got it. We got it. We good. Yeah. Index, push. We good. We good. Like, none of them did that. They took turns. I repeat this over and over and over. They took turns beating that man like he was a piece of trash. Like, the badge, everything went out the window. And that's the part that I'm really going to need them. I wish I could get their reports and see how they articulated killing that man. Because there's no articulation for anything that they did besides the traffic stop. That's it. That's the only thing they can articulate. Everything after that, they cannot articulate at all.
Yep, you're right. And to your first point about a supervisor, I was a very engaged supervisor. I was out there, 90% plus of the time. There are times when the supervisor has to be pulled away or has paperwork to do. It may be on a vacation and not there. But in most incidents, if you have an active unit like a street crimes unit, they're kind of ROI, rules of engagement. We would go out as a pack, right? So we were how many's in the group. In some units it's 7 to 12 normally, and you go out and you pack together. So there's going to be a large amount of officers if you get out with somebody that are normally there, and most of the time that would include a supervisor. But then it almost, I was talking to some buddies. I'm like, it almost seemed retaliatory, right? Because it didn't seem like they were trying to make an arrest. They had opportunities to, 4 or 5 to pin them down, to use some arrest techniques. And I was wondering, like, there was a rumor apparently going around that one of the officers may have been dating the guy who was his girlfriend or something, but apparently that's not true. But I was like, man, if it's like they weren't trying to arrest the guy. They were just sloppy. Yeah, they did. Personal. And when I was started CMPD, we updated our use of force policy in 2020, I believe 1920, and I sat on the board from the very beginning. So I did a lot of research on other agencies' use of force continuum, and most of them are going to mirror what we have. The wording might be a little different, but for the most part, the use of force continuum is going to be the same, and the rules of engagement or use of force are going to be the same, right? So just because we use a standard that the Supreme Court has set in numerous case laws for the policy. But I just, from the very bit, I think the taser was deployed when they first got him out of the car. And I don't know with their policy in CPD, that would be a violation of our policy because we could only tase. There's some other circumstances, but basically active aggression, which everything I saw this gentleman was maybe some passive aggression. And, it could be, some people said that he was scared, and it could be that because, I'll be pretty freaking scared too and want to run and get away. But I felt like he was trying to get away, right? So I don't know if there was nothing in the car. He had no warrant. So I don't know what he'd be trying to get away from other than being scared. So that's a very good point. A lot of times, we get in a chase with somebody and they run and they say, oh, why'd you run? Because I was scared. Oh, yeah. And that, you have 12 warrants and a gun and a 8-ball of crack in your car, right? So, but this doesn't seem like one of those cases. So
Yeah, and the one thing I noticed about the whole situation is just the lack of, like, what made me cringe was the body cam footage after the fact. The lying, them trying to articulate it. Like, I'm just looking and I'm like, and I'm listening and I'm like, first of all, y'all are laughing in the background. Um, there's no decorum. There was just a coldness to the whole incident, and it's just something that I've never experienced or seen before. Like, we get so much training as police officers. We get so much training and experience and everything like that. And it's like none of that clicked in. And then there was nobody around that picked it up. Like, hey fellas, like, act like you got some business here, or cameras are on, or just something. Like, there was nothing
keep you
there.
guys in check, like we talked about buddy check before. You keep you guys in check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been the one before that's been amped up if it's during the riot or shooting or use the force, and I'd have one of my guys come up and like, we're good, kind of reminding me, or vice versa. Hey, did you hear? Hey, we're good. We got him. He's 72, which means in custody. So, I honestly, we always talk about use of the force, and normally it's lack of training and experience, and this seems like to be both. You think if they're on a street crime unit, they have some experience, but the lack of training, everything was terrible. And I don't know if they expected that pole cam that caught some of the incident to be recording. And like you said earlier too, the kick to the head would be a clear violation in most people's. I mean, it'd almost be considered a deadly force situation to be able to kick someone in the head, right? So, strike and a kick's normally considered the same thing, but to the head, it's considered a little different. I mean, just to draw back and kick. And did you see their engagement? Like, one officer deployed pepper spray, which any seasoned officer or trainer will tell you, if we're trying to get someone subdued,
That's the last
you really
thing
don't want
we
to use
want to
pepper
see.
spray
You don't
because
want to
it's
use
going to affect all of us. Yeah,
right.
It's what all of us are going to get it. So all of us are going to have the negative effect of the pepper spray. And once they were affected, a couple just kind of walked off kind of nonchalantly, and then left one officer trying to get him in custody. And like you said, at one point, they had both hands behind his back with no handcuffs out, telling him to give him his hands. Well, they had his hands, and the other officer starts beating him in the face. And then also to your point, after the arrest, you heard them, and I've seen this happen before, is they know the cameras are on, so they try to justify their actions by saying, "Hey, man, he tried to grab my gun." I didn't see that in the video. Now, it'd be a little, if the guy did, it would change the rules of engagement a little bit, but I just don't see anyone that would watch this and say, "No, this is how police officers should act."
Yeah. Yeah, that whole, I saw them trying to justify it and trying to articulate it, and it was just a whole bunch of BS. And kudos to that police chief who saw the video and immediately was like, "Nah, this is beyond policing. This is murder. This is there's no tactics involved. This is not what we stand for." And they were fired and brought up on charges. And they keep, the thing about it is the aftermath of it, because once again we see somebody being brute. We see Tyre Nichols, like other times when it's incident, we see somebody getting brutalized on camera, because you hear about the stories. You people say, hey, I was mistreated by police, and but you either don't see the footage, or it's hearsay, or you see the aftermath. This was raw footage of what bad policing is, and how bad policing affects everybody, from other police officers in the community. Because right now, I can't blame anybody when they're getting approached by police to protect themselves. Because that you know what do people always say? They should have complied. They shouldn't have. Well, for all accounts, he was doing exactly what they told him to do. Give me your hands. You got my hands. Put your hands behind your back. Okay. Like he was following all the commands. To me, and this is the sick part about it, it seemed like to me, in the middle of the act, they was trying to build their articulation for what they were doing. Give me your hands. Give me your hands. We all see it. You have his hands behind his back. So why are you punching him? You have his hands. You have them.
And I think, a lot of people ask me what I think the root issue is on a lot of this stuff, and I think it's training experience, and we're not hiring the right people. CMPD's lost 400 officers since January 2020, so 3 years, 400 officers, and they have to fill those positions, and they're still 300 officers short. So you're lowering standards to hire people, where before, years ago, you had thousands of applicants for CMPD. Maybe you had 1,000 applicants for a 45-person recruit class. Now you have 120, right? So you have to get warm bodies, because you have to have people. And I don't know if some of the standards are being cut, and also the people were, since George Floyd, last few years, crying about defunding the police, cutting the budget. Well, if you do that, then it's gonna be less training for the officers, and our officers need more training, right? To continue training in arrest techniques. Apparently, they don't look like it reminded me of like just 5 random people you find somewhere, and it was just a disaster. But you have to have well-trained officers. You have to have the funding to get the well-trained officers. You can't complain about it if you don't give the money to hire special people. And like I said too, when we got hired, like for me, hardly anyone left. Remember when we came, no one really ever left the department unless they got fired. Very, very rarely would they, somebody do something stupid enough to do that. Resign for maybe their wife wanted to move out of state. They took a federal job or retired. That was it. We very few. They would release personnel actions every couple of years. A couple of weeks, and there might be 1 or 2 people on there. But it's the point now that everyone's jumping ship. A lot of it comes back to morale and how the community views us. But they're not getting lifers, right? When I signed up for this job, I'm like, I've got 30 years I got to do, right? There wasn't an option. It was, this is my duty. This is my calling. This is what I want to do. I'll be done in 30 years. And now they're getting people, this is a cool job, or they don't have the mentality. And you were also in the military, and you see in the military, a lot of people join the military for the wrong reasons, and they just don't have, you have to have a little bit of, hey, I want to do the right thing. I want to protect people. And if you don't get the right qualified people, you don't get that. And what do you think? So let's get a little controversial here that we like to do. What do you think about, so I'm sure everybody knows this, but if you don't, the 5 officers were black males. A lot of people still calling us racist, but and you could comment better on that. How do you feel about that? And I know I've been beside you before. We've been in the hood, and people calling you Uncle Tom and all kinds of words just because you wear a blue uniform. But is it possible? I mean, what's your take on that?
What I saw people trying to hard to make it a race issue. They were saying how quickly the black officers were dealt with and brought up on charges and fired, when their white counterparts sometimes either gets the benefit of the doubt, they get to stay on, they get to be on administrative leave. Charges is slow to be brought up against white officers. Now, this is what I will say. That beating had nothing to do with race. And what I mean by that from this standpoint is they weren't beating him because he was a black man. They were beating him because they were awful people. They were bad officers and they were bad human beings. And Mr. Tyre Nichols just happened to be black. This isn't a case to where they were seeking out black people to beat on, unless it comes out later on that they made a pact and that's what they were doing. As of right now, you just saw five animals in a badge, and they acted like a complete wolf pack, and they killed a young man. They killed Tyre Nichols. So I'm always pushing back on people quick to make something a race issue. Number one, because everything isn't about race, and number two, it takes away from the victim, and in this case, it's Mr. Tyre Nichols, and it was just bad policing and bad people. It had nothing to do with him being black. Now, am I naive to think that these officers believe that his life didn't mean anything because he was a black man? Would they have treated somebody named Chet differently? Possibly. That very well could have had happened. But the issue is you can't rush the race all the time, especially when something like this happens, because you got everything. You got the bad police tactics, you got lack of accountability, you got the lying, you got the corruption because the cops were lying amongst each other. You got the systematic stuff to where no police was helping them out, the EMTs didn't help them, and then you got stuff like that that's going on. It's just sad all around that when you're dealing with stuff like that. And when I wanted to be a police officer, I didn't think anything. I didn't think any. I was the naive one that thought that being a police officer is the best thing in the world. You're going to help people, you're going to fix the community, you're going to put away the bad guys, and you're going to do all the good things that that police officers are supposed to do. Fast forward, you see stuff like this, and it just makes your stomach turn, because everybody's put under one umbrella now. Now all cops are bad. Once again, bad enough we were bad. Now whether you're black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Like it's really a human thing, and until we get better humans to start get better humans in these police departments, we're going to keep having this problem. But like Step has said, and we're having some technical difficulties, so Step will be back as soon as he can. When I was getting hired, it was like 1,000 applicants for like 45 positions. But now it's almost as if they're taking anybody. And I hate to say it, you try to vet these people, but now it turns into what else can you do? You need people out there, but you don't want to just put anybody out there. You're trying to recruit the best of the best, but not everybody's perfect. So you're trying to figure everything out, and then that's the problems you're getting now. You're getting a diluted pool, and you're getting 5 officers in Memphis. And from some accounts, some things is coming out where some of the officers shouldn't even been in that position to be there that night, because they should have been gone. They should have been fired. And I'm pretty sure stuff is going to come out. A lot of stuff is going to come out in their past that says that they should have been fired.
And then, I lost you for a minute. I'm on. So I'm just tell me if you talked about it. But we had an officer. You actually worked with him in Eastway, and he got arrested right before me getting Marcus Jackson, who was sexually assaulting women on traffic stops.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the word was that initially they weren't going to hire him, and then some of the higher ups said no, we need to hire him, and hired him anyway. And I wonder how long do we know how long these guys have been on, these officers, like when they came on, and education or training or anything?
Let me see. Let me look that
and
up.
For y'all that don't know, I say this all the time because I like bragging on them. But while you're looking, give me an update on your doctorate program.
I'm still
I
doing
can't
it.
wait to call you. I can't wait to be calling you Doctor Prince Blue.
So I could
That's
be on here
awesome, dude.
yelling in the lab coat. That's the weird thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Scorpion unit credited with 30 arrests, seizing 29 guns. Let's see. They each, let me see. It doesn't say how long each officer's been on, but they definitely had experience. Let's see. Let me see. Let me see if I can find.
And the way you do that, so one thing I'm concerned about, which I've seen a lot happen, and it is sometimes. So I think we're all in agreement this was an excessive use of force, right? It's criminal. Uh, Not sure what the autopsy was. What is the autopsy be released as far as like cause of death? Was like blunt force trauma, or I want to. Do we know how he died? I know it was like 3 days later.
Yeah, it was from. Let me see. Blunt force trauma. Injuries to the beatings.
Yeah. So I mean, kicking
Yeah.
someone in the head. I mean, you could really potentially kill someone by kicking him with force in the head, right? So, and it was like a punt. The guy drew back and kicked, and like I said, most places, unless it's you know a lethal encounter or something, potentially you're not going to be allowed to do that. But sometimes they charge in this instance like the officer with kidnapping. I don't know how that's going to fly with if the stop was justified, if they had reasonable suspicion and probable cause. I don't know where the kidnapping would come from, and then they charge them with committing a crime while armed. Of course, we're in North Carolina and that's Tennessee. They have different statutes, different wording, but I don't know how that would fly. And I worry about them just throwing a lot of these charges on the wall to appease people. And then what happens is we've seen it happen before. Later in the court process, it gets dismissed because the elements aren't met, and then people get really upset. So we're said you can't. And I'm not saying they were. I don't know, but based on that happened here, I don't see a kidnapping charge. I don't see the elements for. We don't have like an oppression charge like Tennessee has. Or being committing a felony while armed, or so we don't have some of those statutes. But if they overcharge, knowing the elements aren't met, and then they're dismissed, a lot of people get disappointed. And sometimes that makes them angry and increases the likelihood of civil unrest. I mean, if they need to get charge them with whatever. But have you seen that before? I'm on the right.
Yeah, you see that a lot of times where they throw a whole bunch of charges, and then to me, I've always felt like the more charges you throw at people, the more room it gives people to be upset, because then they'll be like, "Well, how come these charges aren't me?" And they don't understand that you want them on the biggest charge possible. You want that one to stick, and everything else, is kind of like fillers. But I feel like that I still personally feel like there's something about that second degree murder charge that I don't know if it's going to be able to stick. I don't know if they're going to plea or not, but I think man, they need to do some serious freaking time, because that was just god awful, and something like that should never ever happen. Never mind the cameras, never mind whatever. You just should not ever sit out to treat another human being that way.
And then it's devastating, because not only are they affected in Memphis. Could you imagine being a good officer in Memphis and now you're seen as almost an accomplice to what happened? But it affects officers here in North Carolina. There's been protests, and it's just the way people view police in general is real. This is really damaged. Like, we didn't have enough with the George Floyd incident. It's to be in law enforcement. This is another kick in the balls, just to put it bluntly, to the profession.
But you know what? I feel like this is one of those things to where It's gonna wake a lot of police officers up. You're gonna have to move different. You're gonna have to not. You can't just talk to people any kind of way. You can't just put your hands on people because you feel like you can articulate it. You're gonna have to learn. You're gonna have to learn some serious ways. You have to learn how to be police again, not just bullies with a badge.
Yeah,
not just walking around here like you damn John Wayne.
And in Charlotte and a lot of other places, we also looked. I mean, there's sometimes that I've been, that we have to take it to somebody. They're trying to grab our guns. We're fighting them, and you're going to sometimes have to hurt people, right? So just because you hit somebody doesn't mean. But you have to be able to not only articulate it. I could go up and try to articulate anything, but it's what a reasonable officer would do. So these guys are to be held to that standard, and I don't think a reasonable officer with the same amount of training, time on, is anybody's to be like, no, this is okay. This is what should have been done. So I mean, what will this change? Hopefully, better training. We get better qualified candidates, but the problem is it's going to have the reverse effect, because this is just makes it harder for somebody who thinks, hey, I would like to be a police officer. I want to serve the community. I want to do the right thing. But now they're going to be like, wait, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to be viewed as somebody that does stuff like that. Because I got in law enforcement as well as you did, to kind of take up for the people getting bullied. I saw myself as someone who was taking up for people that couldn't defend themselves or take up for themselves. And this was like the bullies. In this instance, the bullies were the police.
Yeah, we've become the bullies, and like I've been trying to tell people for a long time, the badge enhances whoever you are at your core. So if you're a good person, the badge is just going to make you even better. You're going to use all your training experience to be an even better person and make the world better. If you're an asshole, if you're a predator, if you're a bully, if you're power hungry, you're a power tripper, that badge is gonna make it 10 times worse. And right. I feel like all of those officers, that's what that badge did. I don't care about their educational training. I don't care what fraternity they was in. I don't care about none of that shit, because what they did, that badge only increased it. Because if they was a good person, none of that would have happened. You and I have worn a badge, and we've had to take it to people. And yes, we've gotten angry at times while we're at work, but it never. You could check both of our jackets. We never got brought up on excessive force.
Never. Yeah.
Never. And
so
you and I know that if we were ever, you and I have been a part of rest together. If you and I, or we see another officer that's getting carried away, or it look like they're getting a little too amped up, we know how to remove them from the situation. We've done it. People have removed me from the situation. My biggest pet peeve, or the thing that bothered me the most, was calls that involved children being hurt and women being abused. I had great police officers. I had great fellow police officers that always knew, like, they would like give me pep talks, like Blue, let me talk, let me handle it. You watch my six. If anything pop off, you got my back. Because they knew I would those are just two things that just bother me to my core. But I knew, even as much as some of the people I've arrested are pieces of shit, I knew that getting justice would not be done if I did anything wrong, if I beat them up, if I did excessive force. Because then it's taken away from the victim, and you've seen it. You've seen people do absolutely dirt shit, but because police officers didn't do their job right, not only is this person getting reduced time, they're getting paychecks, they're getting money, they're getting lawsuits. We have to do better. We have to do better at all levels.
And this really discourages the good cops who actually do proactive policing the right way, from going out there and doing proactive policing. Because a lot of these neighborhoods, like we worked, when me and you worked together, we worked a violent crime area where we had a lot of violent crime. and they need the people in the community want police there, right? To stop the bad guys from robbing them and breaking into their homes and stuff. So there needs to be that element of officers who are going out there looking for bad guys. But it makes it harder for them to do now after this fiasco.
And you know what's the bad thing about it is, you can't explain what we saw on that tape. Like, you can't explain it away. Like, even as bad as the George Floyd thing, there was things that you can explain why it occurred or why, whatever. There's no explaining what we saw in that video. Like I said, up until them completing the stop, that's the only thing they did by the book was to stop. Everything else after that was not policing. It was just pure mayhem and just people being subhuman and treating Tyre Nichols like he was a nobody. And now he's no longer here.
I can't even see in that situation where an officer would get upset, right? I mean, people, I tell people all the time, you could I want you to try to run and get away because, I want to try to catch you, right? Catch bad guys. But as long as and I'll tell them, as long as you don't try to hurt me or my guys, I don't have a problem with you, right? If you're trying to get away and you run and you're passive aggression, passive resistance, and we get you, put you on the ground or whatever, I'm not mad at you. I don't see, I didn't see, we'll call him the victim in this incident, strike the police. I didn't see any active aggression, which would sometimes, if I punch you in the face, you're probably gonna get pissed off, which might lead to you using more force than you need to do just because emotionally you get pissed off, right? So that happens, or someone's talking smack, he's like, yeah, fuck you and your mama, blah, blah, blah. That's going to upset you, make some officers. But none of that was happening. So I can't imagine, I'm trying to put myself in these officers' shoes to try to not justify it, to try to figure out what are they thinking? Is there, because I have seen police videos that get criticized, and I don't think the officers did anything wrong based on training and stuff, but this is not one of them. But like, if me and you were there and we're going after this guy, he's ran away from a traffic stop. Why would I be mad at that? Like, why would I feel the need to beat him? And back to your point is not knowing the history of the officer. Are they just that bad of people where they want to just hurt somebody for really no? I mean, I could think of a lot of times that I wanted to hurt really bad guys for doing something really bad to people. And you have to keep yourself in check. But this, I can't think of you or me or these other officers. We're in that situation where we're going to be angry at this guy, where we want to beat him for, just basically trying to run away and pull away a little bit.
And I it's just another, and it's a bad pun, but it's just another black eye on the policing community. Yeah. It's just
do you remember how proud?
And I still am. I'm just so disappointed because, and y'all can see my badge in the background right there. I display it high because I know I did the job to the best of my abilities, and I never impeded on anybody's rights or made anybody feel less than subhuman. And I've ran across some people that, you wouldn't spit on them if they was on fire. But I know that they have rights, and there's a system that I signed up. So I obviously must believe in it, and I have to allow that system to do its job. But these five, it's like they forgot everything that the badge stood for, everything that they were sworn in to do, and they just went out here and they were just complete unhinged animals. And we see what happens when so and so, he got a little assault in his background, but he explained it away. all right, we're not gonna disqualify him for that. Now you see why there's something to that. And then on top of that, now you see why we're going to bring it full circle to why you and I started this podcast in the first place, was the mental health of officers. Like they make us take physical fitness tests every year. Why don't they make us take mental health evaluations every year? I'm not using mental health excuse. I'm saying they could have found that these people are unhinged. They shouldn't be police officers. Like you know, it's that if you have too many uses of force or anything like that, there's counselors involved. There's supervisor meetings involved. Like, hey, this is like the third one this week. Like, you're the common denominator. What's going on? Why are you in so many use of forces? Yeah. These 5 officers, I know for a fact, I'm willing to bet the farm on it. There was something in there. There's something in their police record, their employee file that says that they should not have been there that night, meaning they shouldn't be police officers at all. I'm willing to bet the farm on that.
And I bet you're right. And you know, just that we need to remember why we did this job is to make a difference, right? And arrest bad guys, and you know, some people do it because they like to drive fast and get out of speeding tickets. But you know, ultimately, we have to do the right thing. If not, I mean, it's bad for everybody.
This is from my Aunt Wynn. Hi, Aunt Wynn. Y'all cannot explain nothing these police officers did in this case. They seem to me like they enjoyed what they did to Tyre. And I gotta agree with my Aunt Wynn. Like we've all said it. I got my homegirl Keisha and my homeboy AJ in the chat. We all it looked so personal because there's no
retaliatory. It looked like it. Yeah, there's no justification for it. It looked like, and like I've said, you said before, it looked like I'm like, did he complain on these officers and they're trying to just beat them down? You know, and then you have to look at the department that allows us, you know, they didn't seem too concerned. You know, does the department allow that type of culture? A big department, you think that shit would have went away in the 80s and 90s.
You know what bothered me is that nobody out of those 5 and the officers that came, nobody. It just seemed so cold. Like you and I have been on scenes like that where we're like, what the hell happened? Like, okay, somebody talk to me. Like, what is going on? And we've been on calls where officers are trying to tell us something. We're like, that doesn't sound right. Like it was like another day. It was like another night with the Scorpion unit. Like we got us another one. That's what it seemed like. Like nobody took charge and showed any type of empathy or remorse or wanting to figure out like why did this happen. It was so weird. And I'm also thinking too, is that the culture? Is that the culture? Is that what we saw on video?
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, I know Charlotte, we have several officers from Memphis, you know, and from all accounts are pretty squared away. So, you know, we have to remember, you know, even though people lump us all in the same pot, it's a total different state, different organization. I tell people all the time, well, if you get mad at McDonald's, you don't take it out on the people at Burger King, where they kind of do the same job at a different location and different rules, different management and stuff. But I understand why we get lumped in the same. It's just part of the, you know, people think, well, if they did it there, they could do it here. And hopefully, I'm not saying it can't, but hopefully it never does. And it makes me, you know, it worries me a little bit, you know, so that we're not, these they need to pay. It comes back to let's pay the officers what they're worth. Let's make sure they get the training and they get vetted in the background. I mean, the number one thing is background. Just do a background check. Do they have anything that raises red flags? Let's make sure they're paying them and having the training, you know, arrest techniques, criminal law, constitutional law, and doing everything we need to do to get these people where they need to be before we release them on the street. Not only were these guys released on the street, they're on a specialized unit, which you'd think the cream of the crop, would be on. And if this is a cream of the crop that they have, which I'm sure it's not, they're in bad shape in Memphis, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I know we're almost out of time, but I wanted to, I know you had a good week on Cloud 9 because your Eagles finally.
Well, it's one more game, so I'm not gonna.
They're going to the Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, and I'm super excited. But as a Philly fan, man, we gotta wait till it's done. I gotta see all zeros on the clock and the confetti coming down and the Eagles holding the trophy until I really show my.
I think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
I think they got a good chance. Man.
I feel good about it. I think we're going to beat Kansas City, but I don't play, so. But
if they win, what are your plans? What's your celebration?
Oh, I'm going to go to the parade.
You're going up there?
Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm going. I'm out.
We could drive the van. How long will we drive the van, and we could get up there in no time.
The only thing about it is that the traffic is so bad, man, that it'll probably take us like 5 days to get out of there. But
and then I've got a lot of text, and if you see me turn off, and I'm sorry my camera's jumping, but I'm in the my Sprinter van. This is the second one. So they want to bring up their. Did you hear? So apparently, finally, so CMPD's done a couple things to try to improve morale. One, a few months ago, they allowed beards, which is huge for a lot of people. I mean, that'd be nice not to have to shave every day. Two, tattoos, which both of those, when I was on the chief morale board, we recommended those along some take-home cars. External vests are huge. I had the opportunity during the riots of 20 to wear the external vest. And it was the most comfortable thing ever compared to having all that stuff on your hip. But also, they gave second and third shift, I think it's 2.5% a shift differential. So they're going to get paid 2.5% more for being, which they should on second and third shift, right? And I think specialized units should get extra, which they don't. But what bothers me is being a street crime sergeant and a street crimes officer prior to that is now those officers, which it wasn't that I got to control the shift and come in, let's make our schedule and do what we need to do unless there's a needs for the division. But now all 13 street crime units in the city are required to work the same hours, and they can't come in early to do a specialized warrant or whatever without approval from the major. So they're working from 4 p.m., 4 to 2, or 6 to 3, or 5 to 3 or something. So they're working basically what we used to have a 4 shift hours, right? So they come on after second shift, but before third shift. So they're kind of like the in between, but they're not getting the shift differential. I did confirm that K9 is getting the shift differential. So for instance, Steel Creek with the division I was in, they had an officer come from the shift who was getting a 5% pay increase for PTO, FTO, field training officer. So he's getting 5% increase in salary for that and 2.5% for being on third shift. So he's making 7.5% over someone on first shift or on CRU. Well, he took a CRU position. He lost his 5% because they don't allow the PTOs to be on specialized units anymore. And where we used to let them be on they could still train on the shift, and lost a 2.5% pay raise. So he's working pretty much the same hours, if not worse, because 4 shift hours, you're coming in later, you have more of your day, but you're staying later, which kind of sucks. And he's on a specialized unit. So you got the guys on specialized units who are taking pay hits to be the cream of the crop. And I think it could run into problems like we see in Memphis is normally the CRU guys are the squared away guys that want to get in the action and do the thing. So you're taking away the incentive to be on a specialized unit by penalizing them almost for being on that unit. And that's going to, the guys on street crimes units are more likely to be in uses of force shootings, confrontation and stuff. So I know that FOP here in Charlotte are trying to do some things to get that changed and go in front of city council. But the administration, there were a couple of them fighting for the CRU guys to get it, but they didn't. They're not giving it to them so far. So hopefully they get that. It just didn't make sense to me why you wouldn't. But I know that's got, especially a time now where morale's so bad and things are like this are happening. We need to take care of officers. We're 300 officers short in Charlotte. There's more than enough money in the budget excess to take care of these officers, and you want the best of the best on these units.
You do want the best of the best, and it's just that's why we try to tell people that it's a lot of things that come in that come into play when you're picking police officers, you're putting police officers in these units, because 9 out of 10, if you're happy and you have pride and you're a good person, like, you're gonna want to keep that status that you have. You're gonna want to continue to be part of that elite unit. So hopefully, people can start putting resources towards things that matter, and start vetting these officers more, man, and putting the best officers in the best positions to succeed. And if you got somebody that, like these 5 that shouldn't be on elite squads, especially unsupervised with less supervision, then they shouldn't be there. And then if you can't trust, because pretty much, think about it, you're really your own supervisor as a police officer, as a patrol officer. You're by yourself. You're in your car most of the time. So you have to be able to supervise yourself, and you have to be able to do the right thing when nobody's looking. And we didn't get that. And again, I want to give my condolences to Tyre Nichols, his family, his friends, the Memphis community, and the police that are actually doing fine jobs and are suffering because of incidents like that. And I make no bones about it. Like, you and I, we back the blue, but we don't back BS, and we don't back bad cops. So that's all I'm gonna say on that. And I just want to let people I just want to let people know that we're continue to be a podcast for change, and we're going to continue to call out the bad stuff. When we do good stuff, we're gonna highlight it, and when we do bad stuff, we're gonna hammer that shit, because being a police officer, man, that's one of the most important jobs, blessings that you can have to be. And if you're out here not taking that blessing serious, or not using your power for positive change, then you shouldn't wear that badge. And we're going to continue to let people know that. So thanks everybody for listening.
Quick shout out to my girl Jean. She just retired. She was injured on duty on a use of force, and she had a big uphill battle. Took her almost a year to get approval, but she had a legit injury and a good arrest she made at a use of force. And she had to medically retire after 22 plus, maybe 23 years. So I'm glad she's okay, but she got approved a couple months ago, and she always watches the show, and I just want to give her a shout out.
Shout out
she was
to
a good cop.
Yeah, I've done a couple calls with Jean. Jean's good.
She's good people.
So
she's a good cop. I tell people all the time. I sing her praises, man. I'm sometimes critical of female police officers, but every time someone hit the fan, she was there, running with me and going hands on, and she felt like a cop and was a good cop. So, I hate Charlotte lost her, but I'm glad she's doing some rehab and trying to get better.
Yeah, definitely. So, you can find me at Real Prince Blue on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and you can find Step 2223 on Love You Too Inc. You can find Step, what is it, Tog 4240?
I think I made them. I made them all consistent or something to see what it is, because I got confused. And I'm looking. Yeah, it's like Tog 4280 or 2223.
Tog 4280 on TikTok.
What one of the guys wanted me to mention, he said that since it's happened, surprisingly, he works the Freedom Division, where it's minorities are probably 80-90% of the population, and he said a lot of people, even at lights, are coming up to him and saying, "Hey, thank you for your service. Thanks for doing the right thing." So maybe they've got it right going in Charlotte for the most part, and in these other places that some people recognize that there's a few bad apples and shouldn't tarnish the whole batch. So we thanks to people that are out there do that. And if you see a cop, just tell them, hey man, thank you for your service, man. I mean that goes a long way, especially when morale's in the crapper like it is now. But that's it.
Yeah. So if y'all want to hear more, just let us know. Our DMs, our messages and stuff. Everything is open. You can contact us on all social media platforms. This podcast will be available for download across all platforms: Spotify, Spotify, Apple, everything. All those things that you kids listen to, all you hip tech people. I want to thank everybody for listening and joining us. I know it was short notice. I appreciate the support as always. I just want to say, everybody, please be careful out there, and any encounters you have with police, if it's a bad encounter, please, I beg you to report that police officer, report that encounter. Even if you're not sure, report it anyway. Get somebody, because anytime you make a complaint, somebody has to look at it. They have to review the tape. They have to review the video footage. And even if you feel like something didn't happen or something like that, these videos are used for training tools. They can teach officers where they went wrong, where they can use better tact, all that stuff. So please report these encounters. Don't just go to Facebook and YouTube and bitch about it. No, report somebody that can actually do something about it. And with that being said, I appreciate everybody. Please be safe. Again, my condolences to Tyre Nichols and his family. And I hope everybody has a good night. And please, the next time you see us, hopefully we'll be talking about something good and not this again. So thank you, everybody. And we are out of here.